The plane ticket confirmation email stared back at me from Lily's laptop screen like a neon sign advertising my own stupidity. 2 passengers, Lily Miller and Brian Foster. Destination, Maui. The same trip I'd been planning and paying for since February. My name was nowhere to be found. I'm Aaron Miller, 34 years old, and until that moment, I thought I was reasonably intelligent. I fix Boeing 737s for Pacific Airways, which means I understand complex systems, troubleshoot problems that could ruin people, and generally keep my head screwed on straight. But apparently, I'd missed the biggest malfunction in my own life. "Aaron, honey, did you hear me?" Lily's voice drifted from the kitchen, sweet as antifreeze. "I said your ticket never got confirmed. There must have been some computer glitch." I closed the laptop carefully, the way you'd handle a live grenade. We'd been married 6 years, and I'd watched her transform from the ambitious marketing consultant who used to laugh at my airplane jokes into this cold stranger who treated our conversations like mandatory corporate meetings. "That's weird," I called back, proud of how normal my voice sounded. "I'll call the airline tomorrow." But tomorrow was too late. Their flight left at 6 a.m. I walked into our kitchen, where Lily stood packing her designer luggage. She'd bought 3 new bikinis for this trip, charged them to our joint credit card, along with $1,000 worth of other necessities. Her blonde hair was pulled back in that severe bun she wore when she was lying about something important. "It's probably for the best anyway," she said without looking up. "Amanda's wedding is going to be super intimate. Family only, you know. Plus, the resort is completely booked. There's literally nowhere for you to stay." Amanda was Lily's sister. I'd known her for 8 years, been to 3 family barbecues at her house, and helped her move twice. But sure, family only. "Right," I said, completely booked. Lily finally looked at me, and for just a second, I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt? Relief? Maybe just annoyance that I wasn't making this easier for her. "You understand, don't you? I mean, you hate beach vacations anyway, all that sun and sand. You always complain about how the salt water makes your skin itch." I'd never complained about salt water in my life. I'd grown up in San Diego, for Christ's sake. But this wasn't about facts anymore. "Of course I understand," I said. "Have a great time." She smiled then, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in months. It was radiant and beautiful and made me want to throw up. That night, I lay in bed listening to Lily's excited phone calls with her best friend Heather. She was in the bathroom with the door closed, but our house was built in 1987 with walls like tissue paper. I know, I feel terrible about Aaron," she was saying. "But honestly, Heather, this is probably exactly what Brian and I need. Some time alone to figure out what we really want." Brian Foster, marketing director at Lily's firm, drives a cherry red Camaro and apparently had been figuring out what he wanted with my wife for God knows how long. "No, Aaron doesn't suspect anything," Lily continued. "He's been so wrapped up in work lately. And you know how he is. He just accepts whatever I tell him. He's not exactly the confrontational type." She was right about that. I'd never been the confrontational type. I was the type who fixed things quietly, methodically, without a lot of drama. The type who studied a problem from every angle before making a move. The type who was about to disappear completely. I waited until 4 a.m. after Lily had finally stopped giggling into her phone and fallen asleep. Then I got up, got dressed, and walked out of our house for the last time. But first, I stopped by our home office and sent a few emails. The ferry terminal at 5 a.m. was exactly the kind of lonely, fluorescent-lit purgatory where you could drop a cell phone into an aquarium and nobody would ask questions. I watched my iPhone sink past a plastic treasure chest and a confused-looking angelfish, then bought a cup of coffee that tasted like motor oil and waited for the first ferry to anywhere. I'd always wondered what it would feel like to just vanish. Turns out, it feels like the best cup of terrible coffee you've ever had in your life. My plan wasn't complicated, because the best plans never are. Over the past 6 months, while Lily had been working late and attending team-building exercises with Brian, I'd been quietly moving money. Not stealing. Everything I moved came from accounts with my name on them, money I'd earned fixing planes while she was busy breaking our marriage. I'd also been having interesting conversations with my boss, Janet Morrison, about the future of Pacific Airways maintenance contracts. Janet was 55, sharp as a scalpel, and had been watching our department get undercut by Apex Aviation for 2 years. She was very interested when I mentioned that Apex's lead mechanic might be available for consultation. That lead mechanic being me, of course. The ferry churned through Puget Sound while I imagined Lily waking up to find my note on the kitchen counter. Enjoy paradise. I'm not coming back. Short, sweet, and probably the most honest thing I'd said to her in months. By the time their plane was taking off for Maui, I was checking into a motel in Tacoma under a name that wasn't quite Aaron Miller. Close enough to cash the checks I'd been writing to myself, different enough that Lily's inevitable private investigator would have to work for his money. I spent the next 3 days watching cable TV and growing a beard. It was surprisingly therapeutic. On day 4, my new phone rang. Janet Morrison's voice was crisp and professional. Aaron, I've got good news. Apex Aviation is very interested in bringing you on as a senior consultant. The salary we discussed plus profit sharing. When can you start? How about now? I like your attitude. There's just one small detail we need to discuss. Apex is considering dropping their marketing firm. Something about wanting a fresh perspective on their corporate image. You wouldn't happen to know anything about Morrison & Associates marketing, would you? Morrison & Associates. Lily's firm. Never heard of them, I said. But I'm sure you'll make the right decision. Janet laughed. I'm sure we will. Meanwhile, according to Dave Martinez, my former co-worker and the only person who knew how to reach me, things were getting interesting back home. Dude, you should see the neighborhood Facebook group, Dave told me during one of our carefully scheduled phone calls. Mrs. Henderson from across the street posted asking if anyone knew where you went. Said she was worried because your car's been gone for a week, and Lily told her you were dealing with a family emergency. What kind of family emergency? That's the beautiful part. Lily's story keeps changing. First it was your sick aunt in Portland. Then it was a work conference in Denver. Yesterday she told the mailman you were in rehab. I nearly choked on my gas station coffee. Rehab? For gambling addiction, apparently. Really explains why all your bank accounts are empty. Dave was enjoying this way too much, but I couldn't blame him. He'd never liked Lily, especially after she'd made it clear that my friends weren't sophisticated enough for her social circle. How's she handling the money situation? Well, let's see. She tried to pay for groceries yesterday and her card got declined. Had to call someone to come bail her out. Tall guy, drives a red Camaro. Brian to the rescue. How romantic. And the Hawaii trip? Oh man, you should see her Instagram. It's like a highlight reel of someone trying way too hard to prove they're having the best time ever. Lots of photos of tropical drinks and sunset selfies. But here's the weird thing. She's posting pictures of herself alone. If this Brian guy is there, she's keeping him out of the shots. That made sense. Lily was many things, but she wasn't stupid. She knew that posting couple photos with her coworker while her husband was mysteriously missing would raise questions she wasn't ready to answer. But social media has a way of telling stories people don't mean to tell. Dave, do me a favor. Start following some of her coworkers on Instagram. See if anyone else is posting from Hawaii this week. You devious bastard. I love it. 3 days later, Dave called back with news that made my month. Jackpot. Brian Foster's been posting like crazy. Same beach, same resort, same time frame. And get this, one of their co-workers, Jennifer something, commented on one of his sunset photos. You two look so happy together, with a bunch of heart emojis. Please tell me you screenshotted that. Already sent it to your email, along with about 15 other gems. My personal favorite is the one where they're both tagged at the same restaurant on the same night, but Lily's post says she's enjoying a quiet dinner alone, while Brian's says he's celebrating new beginnings with someone special. The internet, I reflected, was a wonderful thing. By the time Lily and Brian returned from their romantic getaway, I'd been gone for 2 weeks. According to Dave, Lily had filed a missing person report, but the police weren't exactly launching a manhunt for a grown man who'd left a note saying he wasn't coming back. She'd also hired a private investigator, which was flattering but pointless. I wasn't hiding from the law, just from her. And I'd learned a long time ago that the best way to hide something was to put it somewhere nobody thought to look. Nobody thought to look for Aaron Miller at Apex Aviation, because Aaron Miller had never worked there. But Alex Millard had, and Alex Millard was doing very well for himself. 1 year later, I walked back into my old neighborhood looking like a different person. 40 pounds lighter, hair professionally cut, wearing a suit that cost more than my old monthly salary. I'd learned that revenge, like aviation maintenance, was all about attention to detail and perfect timing. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Lily had let the lawn go to hell, and there was a stack of newspapers by the front door that suggested she wasn't home much anymore, or maybe she just wasn't paying the paperboy. I didn't knock. I had no interest in seeing Lily yet. Instead, I drove to Murphy's Tavern, where I knew Dave would be having his usual Thursday night beer and wings. "Holy shit," Dave said when I walked in. "Is that really you?" "In the flesh." He looked me up and down, taking in the expensive clothes and the confident way I carried myself. "You look like you've been living on a yacht somewhere." "Close. I've been living in a corporate apartment in Bellevue and working 16-hour days. Turns out, when you're not supporting a wife who spends money like it's going out of style, you can actually build some savings." We found a corner booth, and Dave filled me in on the local gossip. It was better than I'd hoped. Lily's firm had lost 3 major contracts over the past year, including the Apex Aviation account. Rumors were flying about the cause, but the general consensus was that Morrison and Associates had developed a reputation for unprofessional behavior. "It started with the Hawaii thing," Dave explained. "Someone posted those screenshots I sent you to one of those workplace gossip sites. You know, marketing director and married co-worker take romantic vacation while husband goes missing. It went semi-viral in the local business community. And Lily? Trying to play the victim. She's been telling people you abandoned her without warning, left her with all the bills, probably ran off with another woman. But it's not really sticking, especially after people started putting together the timeline." Dave pulled out his phone and showed me a Facebook post from Heather, Lily's former best friend. The same Heather who used to giggle with Lily about Brian's gorgeous tan and their honeymoon vibes. The post was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive suburban warfare. "Just want to clear something up since people keep asking. I was not aware of certain people's travel arrangements last year, and I'm disgusted that anyone would think I'd support that kind of behavior. Some of us still believe in marriage vows." Truth. Loyalty. Disappointed. Heather turned on her? Like a rabid dog. Apparently, Lily tried to get her to lie to the private investigator about the timeline. Heather didn't appreciate being asked to commit perjury for someone who'd been lying to her for months. I felt a warm glow of satisfaction. Heather was a gossip with the subtlety of a foghorn. If she'd turned against Lily, half the neighborhood would know about it by Sunday. What about Brian? Dave's grin got wider. Oh, Brian's having his own problems. His wife found out about Hawaii, took the kids, and moved back to her mother's place in Oregon, filed for divorce, and asked for everything. Good for her. It gets better. Brian's been trying to keep the affair quiet at work, but that's kind of hard when your girlfriend's husband disappears right before you take a romantic vacation together. Their HR department launched an investigation into inappropriate workplace relationships. Both of them got written up. I sipped my beer and tried to look sympathetic instead of delighted. That's rough. And expensive. Brian's paying child support, alimony, and legal fees. Had to sell the Camaro and move into some shitty apartment complex on the south side. Lily's been staying there sometimes, which is really helping his reputation with the neighbors. The picture Dave was painting was beautiful. Lily and Brian, isolated from their friends, struggling financially, and facing professional consequences for their choices. It was almost enough to satisfy me. Almost. Dave, I need you to do me a favor. There's going to be an announcement tomorrow about Apex Aviation's new marketing contract. When it comes out, I want you to make sure everyone knows that Aaron Miller is back in town. What kind of announcement? I smiled. The kind that's going to make Lily's year a lot more interesting. The next morning, I put on my best suit and drove to the Westin Hotel downtown. The Pacific Northwest Business Journal was hosting their annual Aerospace Industry Outlook breakfast, and I knew Lily would be there. Morrison and Associates always bought a table at these events, back when they could afford it. I registered under my real name and waited. The ballroom was full of the usual suspects, executives, consultants, and marketing people, all pretending to care about continental breakfast while they networked aggressively. I spotted Lily immediately. She was wearing a dress that was probably supposed to look professional, but mostly looked desperate, and she was working the room like her life depended on it. Which, I supposed, it did. Brian was there too, hovering near the coffee station and looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. He'd gained weight since Hawaii, and his suit looked like it came from a discount store. The golden boy image was definitely tarnished. I waited until the presentations began, then took my seat at the head table. When the moderator introduced me as Alex Millard, Senior Vice President of Operations for Apex Aviation, I saw Lily's head snap around like she'd been slapped. Our eyes met across the room, and I gave her my biggest, most professional smile. Then I stood up to deliver the news that was going to ruin her day. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my voice carrying easily across the ballroom sound system. I'm pleased to announce that Apex Aviation has selected Sterling and Associates as our new marketing partner for the next 3 years. I paused, letting that sink in. Sterling and Associates was Morrison's biggest competitor, and everyone in the room knew it. This was a difficult decision, I continued, but we felt it was important to work with a firm that shares our values of integrity, professionalism, and transparency. The words hit their target perfectly. I could see Lily's face going white from across the room, and Brian looked like he was about to throw up his continental breakfast. But I wasn't done. I'd especially like to thank those firms who participated in our selection process. Your proposals helped us understand exactly what we were looking for in a partner. I looked directly at Lily's table, and what we wanted to avoid. The murmur that went through the room was audible. In the business world, that was basically a public execution. After my presentation, I worked the room like the professional I'd become. People wanted to meet the new VP who'd just handed out the biggest marketing contract of the year, and I was happy to oblige. I made sure to position myself where Lily would have to walk past me if she wanted to leave. She lasted about 20 minutes before she cracked. "Aaron!" Her voice was tight with barely controlled fury. "I need to talk to you." "I'm sorry, do we know each other?" I kept my voice polite and slightly confused. "I'm Alex Millard with Apex Aviation." "Cut the shit, Aaron. What the hell do you think you're doing?" Several heads turned our way. "Perfect. Ma'am, I think you might have me confused with someone else. Perhaps you're thinking of your husband." I made a show of looking around. "Is he here? I'd love to meet him." Lily's face went from white to red. "You bastard. You can't just disappear for a year and then come back and destroy my career." "Destroy your career?" I raised my eyebrows in apparent surprise. "I'm not sure what you mean. Apex Aviation simply chose the marketing firm that best represented our corporate values. Surely you can understand that." "Corporate values," she hissed. "What would you know about values? You abandoned your wife without a word." The conversation around us had stopped completely. Everyone was listening now, and I could see phones coming out. This was going to be all over LinkedIn by lunchtime. "That sounds terrible," I said sympathetically. "What kind of man abandons his wife? Although I suppose it might depend on the circumstances. Was she faithful, honest, or was she the kind of woman who takes romantic vacations with her co-workers while her husband thinks she's at her sister's wedding?" Lily's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She'd walked right into that one. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Of course not. I'm sure it was all perfectly innocent. Just like I'm sure your husband's disappearance was completely unrelated to your travel arrangements." Brian appeared at Lily's elbow, looking panicked. "Lily, we should go." "Brian Foster," I said, extending my hand. "I've heard so much about you. How was Hawaii?" He stared at my hand like it was a snake. "I think there's been some misunderstanding." "Oh, I don't think so. I think everything is perfectly clear." I looked around the room at all the interested faces. In fact, I think everyone understands exactly what's been going on. Lily grabbed Brian's arm. "We're leaving." "Of course you are," I said. "That seems to be your specialty." They pushed through the crowd toward the exit, leaving behind a room full of whispers and speculation. I finished my coffee and made a few more professional contacts before heading back to my car. Phase 1 was complete. That afternoon, Dave called me with an update that made my day even better. "Dude, you're all over social media. Someone filmed that whole conversation and posted it to TikTok. It's got like 50,000 views already." "What are people saying?" "Mostly that Lily's a cheating snake, and you're a legend." "Oh, and Morrison and Associates' website crashed. Too much traffic from people trying to figure out what the drama is about." "Interesting." It gets better. Remember Jennifer from Lily's office? The one who commented on Brian's Hawaii photos? She just posted a long Facebook rant about toxic workplace relationships and how she's tired of covering for people who think the rules don't apply to them. She didn't name names, but she didn't have to. I could picture Jennifer, the eager junior account executive who'd probably been doing Lily and Brian's work while they were busy with their affair. She'd always struck me as the type who kept careful track of who owed her what. "And there's more," Dave continued. "Brian's ex-wife shared the TikTok video with a caption that just says, 'This is why.' It's been shared like 1,000 times." The internet was a beautiful thing. One public confrontation, and suddenly, everyone who'd ever been wronged by Lily or Brian felt free to share their stories. It was like watching a dam burst. But I wasn't finished, not even close. That evening, I drove past my old house. Lily's car was in the driveway, and I could see her silhouette in the living room window. She was probably on the phone, trying to do damage control, calling in favors from friends who were suddenly very busy. I didn't stop. I had work to do. The next morning, I visited my lawyer's office in downtown Seattle. Marcus Webb had been handling my financial restructuring for the past year, and he'd been very thorough. "Everything's in order," Marcus said, sliding a folder across his desk. "The debt consolidation company you established has successfully purchased all outstanding obligations. You now legally own the mortgage on your former residence, both car loans and approximately $40,000 in credit card debt. All perfectly legal? Completely above board. You bought the debts at fair market value from the original creditors. The fact that the debtors don't know who their new creditor is, well, that's just good business." I opened the folder and reviewed the documents. It was beautiful in its simplicity. While Lily and Brian had been posting sunset selfies and planning their new life together, I'd been systematically purchasing their financial obligations through a web of shell companies and legal entities. I owned them now, literally. "When do you want to execute the foreclosure notices?" "Not yet. I want them to have a little more time to appreciate their situation." Marcus smiled. He'd been practicing law for 30 years, and he appreciated elegant revenge as much as anyone. What about the employment situation? That should resolve itself naturally. I hear Morrison and Associates is having cash flow problems. That was an understatement. According to my sources, they'd lost 4 more clients since the breakfast incident. The business community in Seattle was smaller than people realized, and word traveled fast. I left Marcus's office and drove to my apartment in Bellevue. It was a beautiful space, floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, and a view of Lake Washington that made me feel like I'd finally made it. The old Aaron Miller could never have afforded this place. But the old Aaron Miller had been supporting a wife who spent money like water and friends who took his generosity for granted. The new Aaron Miller, or Alex Millard, depending on the day, had different priorities. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. L." I deleted it without responding. An hour later, another text. "Please, Aaron, I know you're angry, but we can work this out." Delete. Then, "I'm sorry about Hawaii. It was a mistake. Brian means nothing to me." Delete. Finally, "You're destroying innocent people. Brian has kids." That one made me laugh. Brian's kids were better off without a father who cheated on their mother, and Brian had made his choices with his eyes wide open. I poured myself a glass of wine and watched the sunset over the lake. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities for justice, and I was just getting started. 3 weeks after the breakfast incident, Morrison and Associates officially closed their doors. The local business journal ran a small item about it, citing changing market conditions and strategic realignment, but everyone knew the real story. I celebrated by buying myself a new car. Nothing flashy, a Tesla Model S in midnight blue. Quiet, efficient, and expensive enough to make a statement. Dave met me at the dealership to admire my purchase. "Jesus, Aaron. A year ago you were driving that beat-up Honda and complaining about the price of gas. A year ago I was married to a woman who thought money grew on trees. Amazing how much you can save when you're not funding someone else's lifestyle. Speaking of which, did you hear about Lily's new living situation?" I hadn't, but I was interested. She moved in with Brian full-time. Apparently she couldn't make the mortgage payments on your old place. That was interesting, considering I owned the mortgage now. My property management company had been very discreet about the change in ownership, simply notifying the borrower that their loan had been transferred to a new servicer. Lily probably assumed it was routine paperwork. "How's that working out for them?" Dave grinned. "About as well as you'd expect. Brian's neighbors are not happy about the extra drama. Apparently, there was a screaming match in the parking lot last week when his ex-wife came to pick up the kids. The whole complex heard Lily calling her a vindictive snake. Classy. It gets better. Brian's been applying for new jobs, but his reputation is pretty much shot in the local market. Nobody wants to hire the guy from the TikTok video." The TikTok video had taken on a life of its own. Someone had edited it with dramatic music and captions, turning it into a 3-minute masterpiece of public humiliation. It had been viewed over 2 million times and spawned dozens of reaction videos and commentary pieces about workplace affairs and their consequences. Lily and Brian had become cautionary tales, and they knew it. What about Lily? Any job prospects? She's been doing some freelance work, but nothing steady. Hard to build a client base when your name is associated with professional scandal. I felt a brief flicker of something that might have been sympathy. Then I remembered the plane tickets, and the feeling passed. "Dave, I need you to do me another favor." "Name it." "I want you to organize a reunion. All the old gang from Pacific Airways. Make it a big deal. Rent out Murphy's back room. Invite everyone who used to work in our department. Including the people who stopped talking to you after Lily spread those rumors about your gambling problem. Especially them." Dave raised an eyebrow. "What are you planning?" "Just a friendly get-together. I want to catch up with old friends, show them how well I'm doing, maybe clear up some misunderstandings." "You devious bastard. I love it. The reunion was scheduled for the following Friday. Dave sent out invitations to 30 people, including several who had distanced themselves from me after Lily's whisper campaign. The response was enthusiastic. Everyone wanted to see the mysterious Aaron Miller who'd disappeared for a year and come back as a successful executive. I spent the week preparing for the event like it was a military operation. I had documents to show, stories to tell, and a reputation to rebuild. But first, I had one more surprise to deliver. On Thursday morning, I drove to my old house. Lily's car wasn't in the driveway, which was perfect. I wanted to see the place one more time before I made my final move. The lawn was gone now, and the flower beds Lily used to obsess over were full of weeds. The house looked abandoned, which wasn't far from the truth. I used my key — Lily had never bothered to change the locks — and walked through the rooms where I'd spent 6 years of my life. It was strange how small everything seemed, how shabby and cramped compared to my new apartment. The bedroom still smelled like Lily's perfume, and there were clothes scattered across the floor like she'd left in a hurry. The bathroom was a disaster zone of empty bottles and dirty towels. In the kitchen, I found a stack of unopened bills on the counter. Mortgage payments, car loans, credit cards, all past due, all stamped with increasingly urgent notices. I took photos of everything, then left an envelope on the kitchen table. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a message that would change everything. Lily, your mortgage has been transferred to Millard Holdings, LLC. Your first payment under the new terms is due Monday. Please contact our office to arrange a payment plan, or we will begin foreclosure proceedings. Management. At the bottom of the page was a phone number that would ring directly to my office. I locked the house and drove away, whistling. Friday night arrived, and Murphy's Tavern was packed with familiar faces. People I hadn't seen in over a year, co-workers who'd shared beers and war stories about difficult customers and impossible timelines. The atmosphere was festive, but I could sense the undercurrent of curiosity. Everyone wanted to know where I'd been, what I'd been doing, and how I'd transformed from a blue-collar mechanic into a corporate executive. I worked the room slowly, reintroducing myself to people who'd written me off as a lazy husband who'd abandoned his responsibilities. The conversation was awkward at first, but as I told my story, carefully edited for maximum impact, the mood began to shift. "So, you're telling me," said Tom Rodriguez, a former supervisor who'd stopped returning my calls after Lily's rumors started spreading, "that you didn't have a gambling problem? That was all bullshit?" "Tom, I've never placed a bet in my life. You can check my bank records if you want. Every penny I earned went into savings or investments." "Then why did Lily tell everyone?" "Because Lily needed a cover story that made me look like the bad guy. It's hard to play the victim when people know you were cheating on your husband." I pulled out my phone and showed him the Hawaii photos that had started everything. The timeline was clear, the evidence undeniable. "Jesus Christ," Tom muttered. "She really played us, didn't she? She played everyone. But I don't blame you guys for believing her. She's very convincing when she wants to be." Word spread through the room like wildfire. Within an hour, everyone knew the real story. The mysterious disappearance, the affair, the systematic campaign of lies that Lily had used to cover her tracks. People were angry, not at me, at themselves for being fooled, and at Lily for making them complicit in her deception. "Aaron," said Jennifer Walsh, one of the few people who'd stayed in touch during my absence, "I owe you an apology. I should have known better." "No apology necessary. Lily can be very persuasive. What are you going to do now? I mean, you've got your new job, your new life. Are you going to try to rebuild things with her?" I looked around the room at all these good people who'd been manipulated and lied to, who'd lost a friendship because they'd trusted the wrong person. "No," I said. "I'm going to finish what she started." My phone rang at exactly 9 a.m. Monday morning. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to Lily's panicked voice. "Aaron, what the hell is Millard Holdings? I got your note and I don't understand what's happening. The mortgage company says they sold our loan, but nobody will tell me who bought it. Call me back. We need to talk about this. I deleted the message and went back to my coffee. She called 6 more times that day. The confrontation I'd been building toward for over a year finally came on a Tuesday morning in November. I was leaving my office building when I saw them waiting by my car, Lily and Brian, looking like a pair of refugees from their former lives. Lily had lost weight, and not in a good way. Her clothes hung loose, and her hair needed professional attention she could no longer afford. Brian looked even worse, unshaven, wearing a jacket that had seen better days, with the hollow-eyed look of a man who'd lost everything and knew it. "We need to talk," Lily said as I approached. "About what?" "About this insane revenge fantasy you're living out. About Millard Holdings and the mortgage and whatever other financial games you're playing." I clicked my key fob, and the Tesla chirped softly. "I'm not sure what you mean." "Cut the shit, Aaron. We know it's you. We hired a lawyer to trace the ownership of the holding company. Very clever, by the way. Shell companies inside shell companies, all perfectly legal. You must have spent months setting this up." "Years, actually. I started planning this the night you told me my ticket to Hawaii was never confirmed." Brian stepped forward, trying to look intimidating. It might have worked a year ago, but the Brian Foster standing in front of me was a shadow of the confident marketing director who'd stolen my wife. "You can't just destroy people's lives because your feelings got hurt," he said. I laughed. I couldn't help it. "My feelings got hurt? Brian, you sleeping with my wife and stole my vacation. Then you both tried to destroy my reputation to cover your tracks, and now you're upset because there are consequences?" "We made mistakes," Lily said. "I admit that. But this has gone too far. You own our house, our cars, our credit cards. You've made us unemployable in this city. When does it end?" "It ends when I say it ends." The parking garage was empty except for us, and our voices echoed off the concrete walls. It felt like a scene from a movie, which was appropriate since I'd been directing this particular drama for months. "Aaron, please." Lily's voice cracked, and for a moment she sounded like the woman I'd married. "I know I hurt you. I know what we did was wrong. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work things out." "You want to work things out?" "Yes. I want my husband back." "Your husband is gone, Lily. You ruined him when you booked that trip to Hawaii. What you're looking at now is what grew back in his place." Brian was getting agitated. "This is insane. You can't just buy someone's debts and use them to what? Hold people accountable for their choices? Ensure that actions have consequences? I'm not doing anything illegal, Brian. I'm just better at this game than you are." "It's not a game," Lily shouted. "These are our lives. And you threw them away for a week in paradise with someone else's husband. Did you think there wouldn't be a price?" The conversation was attracting attention. A security guard had appeared at the entrance to the garage, and I could see people with phones filming from the sidewalk. Perfect. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued, my voice calm and professional. "You're going to move out of my house by Friday. You're going to surrender the cars, since you can't make the payments anyway, and you're going to disappear from my life completely." "And if we don't?" Brian asked. "Then I'll foreclose on everything, repossess the vehicles, and sue you both for the outstanding balances. Your credit will be destroyed for the next 7 years, and you'll be lucky to rent a studio apartment in the worst part of town." "You bastard," Lily hissed. "I gave you the best years of my life." "No, you gave me 6 years of lies and manipulation. The best years of my life started the day I walked out of that house." I got into my car and started the engine. The Tesla was silent, but the message was clear. "Enjoy the rest of your lives together," I called through the open window. "You deserve each other." As I drove away, I could see them in my rearview mirror. 2 people who'd thought they were smarter than everyone else, finally learning that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The video of our confrontation was online within hours. Someone had filmed the whole thing from across the street, and the audio was crystal clear. It went viral immediately, spawning thousands of comments and reaction videos. The consensus was overwhelmingly in my favor. People loved a good revenge story, especially one where the cheaters got their comeuppance through legal means rather than violence. Dave called me that evening, laughing so hard he could barely speak. "Dude, you're famous. That video has been shared like 500,000 times. Someone made a remix of it with that Curb Your Enthusiasm music. It's hilarious." "How are they taking it?" "About as well as you'd expect. Brian deleted all his social media accounts, and Lily's been posting these long, rambling rants about cyberbullying and cancel culture. Nobody's buying it." I wasn't surprised. The internet had a way of sorting out heroes and villains, and Lily and Brian had definitely been cast as the villains in this story. "Oh, and get this," Dave continued. "Heather posted a video response defending you. She's calling you an inspiration to betrayed spouses everywhere and sharing some stories about Lily that are, let's just say, they're not flattering." The dominoes were still falling, and I was content to watch them tumble. Friday came and went. Lily and Brian moved out of my house, leaving behind a mess that would cost thousands to clean up. They took what they could fit in a U-Haul truck and disappeared into whatever new life they'd managed to scrape together. I had the house professionally cleaned and put it on the market. It sold within a week for $30,000 more than I'd paid for it 6 years earlier. With the profits, I bought myself a boat. 6 months later, I was sitting on the deck of my cabin cruiser, watching the sunset over Puget Sound, when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I heard you got married again. Congratulations. I hope she makes you happy. L." I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. The woman sleeping below deck wasn't Lily, would never be Lily, and that was exactly the point. Sarah was a pilot for Alaska Airlines, smart and independent and incapable of the kind of deception that had destroyed my first marriage. We'd met at an industry conference, bonded over our shared love of aviation and our mutual distrust of marketing people. She knew my story. Everyone in Seattle knew my story by now, and she thought it was hilarious. "You're like the patron saint of wronged husbands," she'd told me on our first date. "Half the divorced guys in the city want to buy you a drink." I'd bought her a drink instead, and we'd been together ever since. The wedding had been small, private, and absolutely perfect. No drama, no social media posts, no elaborate destination ceremonies. Just two people who'd found each other after learning the hard way what they didn't want in a partner. As the sun disappeared behind the Olympic Mountains, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The betrayal, the disappearance, the systematic destruction of the people who'd tried to destroy me. It had been the most satisfying year of my life. My phone